Hey guys, Peter Franson here from SpiritBlade.com with part 7 of my commentary of Spirit Blade: A World of Shadows. So let's go ahead and get that track started right... Oh, where is it? Right now. Okay. Now this was one of the most complex scenes to edit. It was so hard to pick and choose what to prioritize in the mix. I mean, there are multiple layers at once in this scene, and you have to choose which layers are going to stand out at which precise moments. It's kind of like a complex choral piece where the melody's being handed off from the altos to the sopranos to the tenors to the basses, and that handoff sometimes is happening as fast as, once per note.
To get the rest of her things. She's decided to...
Merrick is talking to both Ran and Nathan in the scene coming up here, and doing that at the same time, using the same set of words to talk to both of them. And again, that's inspired by things like Gaius Baltar from Battlestar Galactica and Dr. Beckett's conversations with Al in Quantum Leap. Alright, I think I see our guy. Here goes.
Merrick Vendarius? Or is it Scythe?
Yeah, Merrick's fine. You must be Nathan. Please, have a seat.
Thank you so much.
I really wanted Brady, as much as possible, to not give away that there was anything sinister going on until as late as possible. I didn't want him to play it and let the audience know before Merrick knows that something's up.
Glitch. Merrick, we've got a problem.
What do you mean?
Hang on, let me verify.
Men with cameras and scanners.
So this is where that double conversation begins with Merrick and both Brady and
So what
Tully.
the problem?
I was right.
I'm not somebody you or your message of truth want to be associated with.
And in a second here,
Activity in the area. It's inside him.
Merrick says, like, Drac, you recording this?
What are you talking about?
And Ran answers affirmatively that he is recording everything that's happening. Just weeks before the final polish, I realized there was a plot hole there. If the Liberation recorded all of this, why would the media not see that? See that they were framed. The Liberation was framed here. So I ended up adding some Merrick dialogue to the scene after this one to fill that hole.
It won't be convincing if you just read from a data pad.
Yesu hates homos, burn in hell sinners. You nuts? You think I'm gonna say this, Drac, out loud? So I put a video out about the recording of that chanting and stuff, and that was really... I really just wanted to create a cringe-worthy moment, especially for Christians listening to this, as I assume most of my audience is.
So you can more carefully consider the situation.
I wanted to have a scene where Ran is just the most bad mother trucker in the universe. You know, a scene for Ran fans to point to and say, how can you think that any other character in this trilogy is even half as cool as Ran is, you know? So in this scene, in a moment here, when he jumps out of the window, his, just before that, his cybernetic limbs reconfigure in some way, and he leaps out of the building, and hopefully you're hearing the way that he first soars up into the air, and the crowd below fades into silence because he's getting further away from them as he goes up in the arc of his jump, but then falls down and slams into the ground. And then you'll notice after he lands, I even meticulously put crumbling and falling rock sounds with each of his metallic footsteps, which themselves are the metallic footsteps constructed from much smaller effects. The note I put in the script is, in that moment, Ran should sound like a tank. Excuse me, a tank with legs. So that's the image that guided the design. So here comes the whole sequence.
Progression systems now active.
So I don't know if you heard all those details, but they're all there. So much of Ran does is made of custom-built sound effects. So much care put into this sequence. I wanted to bring it all out, but it's hard. Now, you can argue that Ran might have killed Mr. Gregory there. I mean, with all that hard metal clanging against squishy metal flesh sounds. I don't think he did, but he wasn't in very good control of himself. So, I mean, it's possible. I just leave that for the audience to wonder.
Legion.
I thought about inserting a comment from Merrick that Mr. Gregory was hospitalized, but I decided to just leave it alone.
Ancient force more powerful than you can imagine or hope to protect yourself.
But yeah, I mean, I want to bring out all those little details, but if I try to bring them all out equally, it just sounds like a cluttered mess of white noise, so,
Far better than that.
Be careful, Merrick.
Frisk, careful. That didn't even phase him. If we're gonna put these things down, Ran, it's gonna take everything we've got.
Those are still people. We can't kill them.
Yeah, it's quite the dilemma, isn't it? Nathan and all these others, though perhaps not innocent, They're all real people, and we can keep their bodies conscious until the point of death. If you want to stop us, you'll have to kill all of them, and every person that we possess after that.
So now here comes Ebony, coming back and changing into the Shaden Assassin, or what sounds like him, and as I brought that character, or what sounds like that character back, I made a point of bringing back the music that I used under the Shaden Assassin in Dark Ritual. So there it is right there. Dum, da, da, dum, you know. I'm a fan of musical themes when they're subtle, and this also meant I didn't have to buy quite as much new music this time, which is great because half my budget is purchasing the licensed music for these projects.
Oh, please, no!
Now when Merrick surges, I bring back the surging music theme from Dark Ritual, so it was cool to discover that it actually worked perfectly as a second layer on top of the Assassin theme. This kind of choral thing. Take care of Ebony Ram. And underneath it, da 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 da. Still the Assassin's theme still runs perfectly underneath it. And that was just kind of a God-orchestrated thing. I'm not a composer, but I have enough music education and love for film score that I enjoy the challenge of taking canned music tracks, re-editing them, sometimes changing the key by pitching them up and down, so that they appear to seamlessly be custom-made for the scene that I'm working on.
Why this freak is back.
Again, on a second listen, you can now understand from this scene that this is actually Ebony talking, not the Demon Assassin, although the voice is the same because the U.2 technology is used in both cases to create that voice. This is some part of Ebony that is now unfiltered in the same way that when we get angry, we say things that we wouldn't normally say because our emotions are breaking through our self-control filters, but it's still who we really are. The tricky thing about writing the Assassin version of Ebony is that I have to avoid saying certain things that would sound weird once you realize it's Ebony, or, well, before you realize it's Ebony, or even in the midst of it. You know, like he says, or she says, "I've never been good enough for you and you've always known it," which would have been much weirder if this growling male demonic voice had expressed it by saying, "I've never been beautiful enough for you. How could I think you would ever love me?" You know? So if I'm not careful there, it could end up sounding really comedic and destroy what I'm going for in their subplot. So we've got coming up a Star Wars wipe, or my audio equivalent of it, to transition from one scene or location to the next, and then we've got a demon talking to the Dark One, and the demon is then recounting what happened with Merrick at the plaza while he was surging. And I went this route because Merrick's power set being physically invincible, sometimes an amazing combatant, those are very visual concepts when I think about them, and especially his ability to escape harm. And I love the concept, but it's not well suited to audio storytelling, otherwise I would have played with it a lot more in this trilogy. But I wanted at least one scene in this trilogy to really play out the potential for Merrick's prophetic invulnerability in a spectacular action movie style, with crazy cool Wachowski / Zack Snyder slow-motion bullet time. So I came up with the idea of a surviving demon explaining what happened, cutting back and forth between the scene at the plaza and the future scene with the demon telling that story. And I also liked it as a non-linear storytelling structure that you wouldn't normally find in audio dramas, which in general are just more straightforward in how they tell stories. And that's me doing the demon voice, if you couldn't tell, by the way. So that's all kind of slow-motion, muffled sounds.
We fired weapons in all directions, a victim for every crosshair. But with speed enhanced by Miracly, he was everywhere at once, placing his body in the path of every weapon. Prophecy itself did the rest. Weapons malfunctioned. Random obstacles interceded.
I loved editing this score to make it work with the scene and the dramatic flow of the story that the demon is telling. It was just a great piece of music to be able to use and play with.
Prophecy foretells. He protected everyone in the crowd without harming even one of our host bodies.
His power continues to grow. The prophecy, his shifting abilities, his Miracly mastery. With all these combined, he is easily the greatest weapon the Liberation has ever unleashed. And now he has even scattered the forces of Legion.
Something we have not experienced since...
So there's that, you know, he's the greatest weapon that the Only has ever unleashed. Again, that's me checking one of my boxes of the initial prophecy Merrick received in the first one.
What happened?
I want to make sure all those bases are covered and all that stuff is fulfilled by the end of the trilogy.
Cast his furious gaze upon us. The scythe became a pure instrument of the only, a mirror of his face. We who constitute Legion pride ourselves in being the vilest of your servants, but in that moment, the very existence of the scythe struck terror in the core of our being.
That's another phrase from the prophecy.
And fled, each by the fastest way possible. We have been reassembling since then.
No matter. Merrick's destiny may be secure, but he will still be my tool in the meantime. And today, we recorded all the video footage we need to destroy the efforts of the Liberation. But you've left something out, haven't you? I can smell it on your stink.
Okay, so when the Dark One says, "I can smell it on your stink," you may notice that's almost a direct quote of Agent Smith in The Matrix when he tells Morpheus, "I can taste your stink." And that's, you know, homage, plagiarism, call it what you want. I love that line from The Matrix, and I couldn't resist kind of reshaping it just a bit and using it here. Like I've said before, writing is not my strength, so at least I try to steal from the best. Now, in this scene here, which caps off this track, I'm trying to plant a seed with Rand's use of the old model dimensional converter. I wanted to establish its existence and its limitations, but hopefully deflect interest in it. You know, like, we're really working on something much better, you know. And so I'm not sure if I really succeeded in deflecting interest from the old model and getting the audience to forget about it, but yet remember it when it, you know, came into play.
Yet. This is the old model we were going to use in the Atlantis.
But I tried.
Our buildings. You can hold it in your hand.
And that's me doing the demon in the background again. My sister, my younger sister Corinne, knows me and my voices so well that she just hears me, she says, when I do these other voices, so maybe I'm not fooling anybody else either. Oh well.
Alternative.
Still, it's working. That's great. Finally, some kind of small victory. Not that it makes up for yesterday. Newsnet rejects your footage and then streams Nathan's in a loop all day. I'm sure Atlantis acquiring Newsnet last year has nothing to do with that. Of course, none of what we did to help people made the cut. Drac, what a mess.
That's the added, right there, the added dialogue that I used to close that loophole that would have been left open by the fact that Rand was recording that entire exchange, you know, so why didn't the media recognize that, you know, the Liberation was being played, you know? So that's my explanation for that.
Good. Put it on the agenda.
That's a given.
And here comes Salos into the room here to kind of do this, you know, implied torture scene. Well, he does start a little bit of torture, but the bulk of it is just implied. I have dreamed of this Salo demon torture scene since writing the script for Spirit Blade Dark Ritual. In fact, when Sean Anthony Roberts recorded for Dark Ritual, I think I even told him at that time about the idea for this scene, which would come in the third installment, and I told him how I was thinking it would end with this reference to Little Mouse that would be a callback to Dark Ritual, and all that implies. You know, all the torture that Merrick went through is called back to in his use of, you know, the expression Little Mouse and calling the demon Little Mouse at the end of this scene. And so as we fade out, you know, we hopefully have a sense of what the demon is in for as we hear the sounds of him screaming. And think back on Dark Ritual. I hope that listeners feel some sense of satisfaction here. They hopefully found Merrick's torture very unsettling in Dark Ritual, and now this scene provides payback in a sense, since the demons played a large part in leading Salos down the dark path that he was on. So hopefully this is a very satisfying moment for listeners. It definitely is for me, and at the same time it may produce mixed feelings, you know? Maybe not quite feeling bad for the demon, but just recognizing and remembering the dark origins of Salos' ability to torture and interrogate, you know, this demon. Those abilities were developed through very dark activities and evil activities.
Circumstances, I'm sure you.
So, and I'm using this kind of like creepy. It might even be the same torture scene track that I used in Dark Ritual. I can't remember. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I'm not sure.
I deserve it.
But you know, yeah, I'm using this creepy music here because, you know, I don't want the audience to feel completely good about this. I just want them to feel just kind of a sobering memory of what happened to Merrick, and then saying to themselves, well, at least now it's being directed in a better place, you know?
Master trained me well. Did you know the English word?
You know, I'm not making any kind of statement that we are equipped to, and it's our role, to punish angels. Certainly not in this life, I don't think ever, but the Bible does say that we as believers will judge angels, so...
Change that, my little mouse.
Anyway, a very dramatically satisfying scene for me to write and to finish and put out there. So hopefully you enjoyed both of those scenes, and we'll come back next time for my thoughts in A World of Shadows Commentary Part 8. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.